Thanks Athletic Greens for sponsoring this video.
Lost the contact lens.
Hope you find it.
Thanks.
Welcome to Screen Crush, I'm Arey, and let's talk about all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things that you might have missed in the first full trailer for Moon Knight. First of all, I'm going to give you a little background on the character's origin from the comics. So, if you are already a fully fledged Moon Knight fan wearing your Konoshu Rocks t-shirt, then you can skip to the Easter egg time code listed down in the chapters. So in the comics, Moon Knight's real name was Marc Specter, and he was the son of a rabbi who fled from the Holocaust. When he became an adult, he became like Odysseus, a man skilled in all means of contending. He became a championship boxer, a Marine, CIA operative, and finally a mercenary. He took a job working for a guy named Raul Bushman, a fella so extreme he had his entire face tattooed to look like a death's head mask. Long story short, Bushman's evil and his forces turned on Marc and left him for dead in the Egyptian desert. But then, Marc found the temple of a moon god called Konoshu, and the god brought him back to life, on the condition that Marc would be his agent on Earth. Marc then dedicates his life to fighting crime and serving the moon god who lives inside his head. Now, apart from the vigilante Moon Knight, he also creates different secret identities for himself. A cab driver named Jake Lockley, who gathers info from the street, and a billionaire playboy named Stephen Grant, who became rich from investing all of Marc's mercenary money. This is also the identity that he uses for most of this trailer. The different identities are symbolic of the different phases of the moon, which looks a little different every time you look at it. So switching back and forth between so many different identities eventually gave Marc dissociative identity disorder, or DID, which used to be called multiple personality disorder. But later comics revealed that Marc didn't actually have DID, he was just the god Konoshu living inside of his head, and his mind splintered as a coping mechanism. Now in the comics, he has no powers except his natural fighting ability and
I'm rich.
but he does have an array of gadgets and a plane that looks like a crescent moon. So let's talk about those Easter eggs. The trailer dropped on the first full moon of the year, which might have been a lucky coincidence,
Or it was the will of Konoshu.
We begin on Oscar Isaac, seen here as one of Moon Knight's other identities, Stephen Grant. Except here, he's not a billionaire, just a museum gift shop worker with no friends. If you notice, he is wearing a white t-shirt, and later on he's wearing a white hoodie under his jacket. These are both hints of the Moon Knight persona, itching away at his subconscious as he naturally chooses to wear white. And he's playing with a Rubik's Cube, which my wife pointed out has many faces just like Moon Knight. Each color of the cube is intermeshed and overlapping with the other, just like his identities are becoming intertwined. Now throughout the series, he'll have to solve the mystery of his identity, much like solving a Rubik's Cube.
Hey person, do you have any New Year's resolutions?
Oh man, I have a ton. There's so many things I want to do. I'm going to finish my audio play. I'm going to publish my novel. I'm going to Europe.
Whoa, that's a lot. How do you have the energy to carry out such a demanding list of goals?
Well, Doug, I'm glad you asked. See, I started using a daily dietary supplement called AG1 by Athletic Greens. They're the sponsor of this video. AG1 helps give me the energy and immune support that I need to accomplish all of my 2022 goals. AG1 makes my day so much easier by giving me more energy and supporting my gut health. It has 75 different ingredients, including vitamins, minerals, superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. It's also very easy to use. You have 1 scoop in 8 ounces of water, shake, and that's all you need for the rest of the day, every day. I even like to add in some of this vitamin D supplement, which helps support my immunity during the darker winter months.
Say, that is easy.
Sure is, buddy. So, if you sign up with the link in the description, you get a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 travel packs. Just click that link in the description to get started on your first purchase of AG1. Back to the Easter eggs.
I can't tell the difference between my waking life and dreams.
Notice that he's listening to a sleep sounds app on his phone. I can relate, I do that every night. Now the narrator with DID who can't sleep sounds an awful lot like the movie Fight Club. Spoilers for a 23-year-old film. In that movie, Ed Norton can't sleep and invents another persona for himself, Tyler Durden, who can fight the perceived injustices of the world. Very similar to Marc Specter creating the persona of Moon Knight. Now one thing I loved about this trailer was the sound design. We begin with the ticking. Like a clock somewhere in the room when you're trying to sleep, and it's constantly reminding you that you have to wake up early and make a Moon Knight trailer breakdown. Then multiple voices overlap. Like his identities are fighting for dominance. But then, as the trailer goes on, more sounds are added to the soundscape, just as hints of Stephen's other identities start to bleed into his mind, until at the end it's a cacophony of noise. And the only way to shut that noise off is to
embrace the chaos.
And become Moon Knight. Now back to the beginning of this trailer. At this point, Steven must realize that he is leaving his bed and doing bad things when he thinks he's sleeping. So he puts painter's tape on his door so he will know if he leaves the apartment or if anyone else comes in. And he ties himself to the bed fastened with a combination lock. If he does have DID, then he's banking on one of his other identities not knowing the combination. Then we see him looking at a mirror which shows multiple reflections of himself. Mirrors appear all over this trailer to show his fractured identity. Some of these mirrors are obvious and some are much more subtle, but I'll talk about that as we go along. When he wakes up, notice that he's made a sprinkle of sand around his bed here. Subconsciously, maybe he created this in the shape of a crescent moon, like the insignia of Moon Knight. He's done this to show himself if he steps out of bed at night, like the salt trap in Paranormal Activity. This book on the right-hand side of the frame is called Adventures of the Soul, a book I have not read, but a little bit of research reveals that the book is about communicating with your spiritual self. In a way, learning to communicate with your own soul, which is interesting for a couple of reasons. The belief in a soul is essentially recognizing that there are spiritual beings that live inside of you, separate from your physical mind. This is an aspect of dualism, sort of like how Marc Specter has multiple identities living inside his head, and one of them is the spirit Konoshu. Now, soul dualism is the belief that we are inhabited by several different souls. There is the soul of the body and the wandering soul, or the free soul. Again, like Marc Specter sharing his thoughts with the spirit Konoshu. Now, the music in the trailer is Day and Night by Kid Cudi, a song that he wrote after the death of his uncle gave him insomnia, which he treated by smoking up. The music video shows his mind playing tricks on him as reality is transformed. People turn into animals or demons. His surroundings change, all similar to the visions that Stephen Grant sees throughout this trailer. Julian Castrusha on Twitter points out that the song choice marks him struggling through his multiple personality disorder. It's all feeling like a bad dream that only he is experiencing. And the song's lyrics match up perfectly with the trailer. Not just the day and night aspect, but there's lines like, I toss and turn, I keep stressing my mind, what? Or, madness to magnet keeps attracting me, what? Then he commutes to his job at a London museum, which Agua Para Nescafe points out is the British Museum, with the largest collection of Egyptian artifacts outside Egypt. He also has some observations about the gift shop, pointing out that this scarab is a symbol of immortality and resurrection. Remember, in the comics, Marc Specter was resurrected by the god Konoshu. And this box puzzle is of Anubis, the god of the underworld, with the head of a jackal. And this ain't the last time we're going to see Anubis in this trailer. When Mark approaches the museum, notice we see its reflection in a puddle, one of many hidden mirrors in the trailer. And when you're sleep deprived, reality seems like a reflection of itself, like nothing is quite real. Now, do you remember the Eternals post-credits scene? We see Dane Whitman in the Natural History Museum in London, and he's about to touch this mystical sword called the Ebony Blade, when this happens.
Sure you're ready for that, Mr. Whitman?
Director Chloe Zhao confirmed that that is the voice of Mahershala Ali as Blade, who's due to get his own film we don't know when. So we have two mystical characters in London at maybe the same time as Moon Knight, making me wonder if this is all building up toward a mystical team-up movie based on the Marvel Comics Midnight Suns. Fingers crossed for a Nick Cage multiversal Ghost Rider joining the fight. We actually see a small hint of Ghost Rider's flaming skull on this sticker in the elevator. Then Steven returns home to a vast empty studio apartment, but the darkness hints that he's not alone. I love this shot of the aquarium, with the fish appearing as if they're floating in midair. There's also a map of Egypt on this wall, maybe showing that his character is a Nilophile.
What's that?
Oh, that's a word that I just made up that means someone who likes to study Egypt.
You mean like an Egyptologist?
Whatever, my name is better.
Your mom is better.
Nice one. Then we see our first look at the Moon Knight costume, which is stunning. I love how they incorporated the mummy bandages into the suit, because Marc Specter was resurrected from the dead. And it's also similar to the vision of Konoshu that we see here. And the mummy bandages costume was taken from the 1986 Moon Knight series, which also featured your mom. Now, this mummy with the rook skull is how Konoshu appeared in the brilliant Warren Ellis run of the comic. It looks scary as hell as it comes toward him. Maybe to possess him, or maybe to simply remind him of his vow to serve Konoshu. Hey, promises were made, get over here! I have theories about that I'll get into later in the video. In the elevator, we have yet another mirror. Then we see him walking through the museum after hours, which we now know is because he works there. Channel Heavy Spoilers pointed out that these statues in the background show the sun god Ra, the god Osiris, who is the god of fertility in the afterlife, and Anubis, the aforementioned god of death. And this golden figure in the background looks an awful lot like how Konoshu was depicted in the Marvel Comics. comics. In fact, John Whitfield on Twitter points out that this is actually the god Horus, who links to Konoshu in certain aspects of Egyptian lore. Of course, the big thing to notice here is that his reflections don't follow him. They're working independently of his other self. In fact, if you look closely, you see they're working independently of one another. This is showing a manifestation of his multiple personalities, or at least of the multiple souls inhabiting his body. I mean, heck, the name Specter actually means ghost. But also notice that we see the reflection of a croc.
I live on the ground. Y'all are just tourists.
Not that kind of croc, like these. No, like the crocodiles found in the River Nile. There's another crocodile found later in the trailer on the old Motorola phone that Steven finds. So that phone is very interesting. It's an older model before GPS was mandatory on all cell phones. So this phone would be hard to track. It's just the sort of phone that a mercenary like Marc Specter would have used. In fact, the woman on the phone, who the subtitles call Layla, even calls him Mark.
Why did you call me Mark?
Now this seems like the other identity. Marc Specter has a hidden past as a mercenary, a past that was buried inside this other identity. Notice that the hole in the wall is shaped like a pyramid, and it was deliberately cut that way by Marc Specter to show the secret of this phone is tied directly to Egypt. And then we meet our villain, played by Ethan Hawke. Now, I think he's actually an amalgam of a couple different villains. The trailer subtitles call him Arthur Harrow. He was a minor Moon Knight villain, a former Nazi who experimented on people and turned them into his acolytes. But there were also rumors that he would be playing a villain called the Sun King.
Or maybe he's playing Mr. Mustard or Polythene Pam.
Or that, yeah. The Sun King worships the Egyptian god Ra, making him the opposite of Konoshu, the god of the moon. Later in the trailer, we see people kneeling to him, which implies there's some kind of supernatural power at work. Now notice this ice cream truck on the left that we'll see again later, and the writing on it is in German. New Jericho Man and Sebwan on Twitter point out that this scene is taking place in Germany and is reminiscent of Loki forcing people to But in the Avengers, people kneeled involuntarily. Here, they seem to be happy to kneel before Ethan Hawke. Now right here, he sees his reflection in this scratched glass. This looks like the outdoor arena here where we see empty seats behind him. The seats are set up all nice and neat like they're waiting for some kind of service. Then he kicks the hell out of this glass, splintering it right where his face is reflected. Again, a mirror symbolizing his fractured selves. A little later, we see him transform into Moon Knight at this same location. So I'm thinking that maybe this is an altar that's been set up as a kind of church service for the sun god Ra. And the reason the seats are empty is because the people won't arrive until dawn, so they can greet Ra.
Like the angels in City of Angels singing to the sunrise.
Yes, Doug, like that.
That movie has a terrible ending.
Yeah, it did. Good soundtrack, though.
And I don't want the world to see me, 'cause I don't think that they'd understand.
Man, that's great. I would buy an album of you doing cover songs.
Really?
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
Anyways, we see shots of Steven in an institution, again wearing white. Maybe he's even looking in another mirror while his reflection is standing still. And he's harming himself, just like the narrator in Fight Club. Now this shot of Mark running down a hallway, notice that he's got a shadow over him of a crescent moon, like the persona of Moon Knight is hovering above him waiting to take over. This is a storage facility that he's probably trying to access with the key that he found in his wall. Now in the comics, 3 priests of Konoshu spoke to Mark telepathically, basically inhabiting his brain, telling him to hunt down artifacts of their god. So this could be Konoshu sending him on a mission to recover certain totems of his power. Then we see him in the bathroom at the museum. Now this shot was teased in the last trailer, where we saw a bulletin board with an Egyptian exhibit flyer. That's why I think this bathroom is in the museum. In the last trailer, we were able to see a pair of eyes skulking behind him. Now this could have been the god Konoshu or the creature that he beats up in the bathroom in this trailer. In the bathroom, they do that cool Citizen Kane infinity mirror shot to fully show all of his other selves, that they are now in sync in the moments before his transformation. To become Moon Knight, all of his personalities have to work together and become one. Notice that we can see the very beginning of the mummy bandages of his costume forming here around his neck. And then we see the aftermath of a battle, or maybe the aftermath of Dewey Cox using the bathroom. He's in front of a shattered mirror which shows a busted vent from the ceiling. This vent is probably where the creature burst in from. And notice that you can also see his reflection on the floor. another hidden mirror. There's also a lot of speculation on social media about what exactly this creature is. Some people think it's a werewolf, since Moon Knight first appeared in the comic Werewolf by Night. But look at the head. It's obviously a jackal, just like the head of Anubis, the god of the underworld. So this could be a minion of Anubis, maybe transformed by Ethan Hawke's mad scientist villain, Arthur Harrow. Now, New Jericho Man on Twitter points out that it looks like a monster on the cover of Moon Knight 2, a villain where Moon Knight fought Arthur Harrow. But more on that when I talk about theories in a second. Then we get this first full-on reveal, which is stellar. This and the final shot of him leaping across buildings looks like it's taken directly from the comics page. I am so excited about this show. So now I want to talk about a few theories about what the heck is actually going on here, pulling from things in the trailer that I skipped over. First of all, I think this guy is actually named Marc Specter, and that he has a real mercenary past. That years ago, he did travel to Egypt and had an origin just like we see in the comics. These shots of Oscar Isaac in Egypt are likely flashbacks of a vision Konoshu showed him when he was resurrected. But the show chose Stephen Grant as our protagonist because he's an easier guy to relate to than a globe-hopping mercenary. It also creates a mystery for us to solve. Just like Stephen Grant, we're all wondering what in the hell is going on here. So the hole in the wall with the keys and phone. We know that's Mark's phone because of Layla's call.
Oh my God, you're alive. What's wrong with you, Mark?
Maybe Mark hid this phone in there as a clue for Steven to find, like the multiple notes that Guy Pearce leaves himself in Memento. In that movie, Guy Pearce's character suffers from a disorder that erases his long-term memory. He's constantly waking up in places, trying to figure out who he is and what's going on. So this show could borrow a lot from that. Okay, so remember the scene where everybody except Oscar Isaac kneels? Well, in the previous trailer, we saw Oscar Isaac wake up from a daze, wearing this same outfit, surrounded by unconscious people who look like that same crowd kneeling to Ethan Hawke, who I keep wanting to call Kevin Bacon because he has the same hair as Kevin Bacon in Tremors, and he didn't know how to use a hammer. No, he didn't. So my guess is that the bad guy either ordered people to fight Oscar Isaac or they were mind-controlled to do it. Then, Steven's other identity, the mercenary Marc Specter, took over. When their body was safe, he retreated, leaving Steven to look around in shock. Later in the trailer, we see him driving the same ice cream truck that was in that square. Like he beat these people up, then hijacked the truck. But he had to fight off some guys that were in the truck, so he became Marc Specter again. But then afterwards, the Steven personality emerges. So Ethan Hawke's character, the Sun King / Arthur Harrow, is experimenting on people just like he does in the comics. Except his experiments are maybe less genetic and more mystical, as he turns people into creatures that serve other Egyptian gods. Because he's trying to gain power for other Egyptian gods, Konoshu demands that Mark / Steven fulfill his vow to serve him and become Moon Knight once more. But that's just my thoughts and theories. Let me know yours down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Arey.